guys, I'm Lisan.
I'm Lana.
And welcome to another episode of Minutes with M&M.
So today we're going to be talking about a show that just came out and it's really, really good. So you should go watch it. Obviously, spoiler alerts and also trigger warning for some aspects that are going to be talked about towards the end of the video. Just a heads up.
Yeah, so the show we are going to be talking about today is called Bad Sisters. It's an Apple TV show about 5, right?
Yes, 5. Lots of kids.
About 5 sisters who go through a tragedy together, and they're really, really close. And
where you're trying to figure out who did what and what happened, basically. That's the premise of it.
Yeah, it's basically a thriller / dark comedy, and it's Irish. It's really, really good.
It's really good.
It's really good.
It's actually very funny. It's pretty heavy, but the comedy moments are hilarious. So give it a try if you haven't. If you have, or if you haven't and you don't care about spoilers, let's get into it. The show starts with JP, who is Jean Paul, the husband of one of the sisters. It's his funeral, he's dead, and we need to figure out how he died, why he died, did someone kill him, and go from there. So that's the main mystery of the season. Who killed JP? Or how did JP die? Because we kind of think we know who killed him throughout the whole season. So maybe it's how did he die is a better question.
Exactly. And I love how it began with the funeral, because it's like, it's a funeral. You expect people to be sad and people to cry. And then you're just seeing like people, make all these snide comments and like faces that feel like they're not really sad. And you're like, what is going on? Because every single person is just not behaving like they should. Maybe the wife, but yeah, it was a very weird one.
Let's kind of run through the 5 sisters before we get into it, so you guys have an idea of who's who. So the oldest sister is Eva. She is single. When we're introduced to her, she has no children, but they let us know repeatedly she's the one who raised the rest of their siblings when their parents died when they were younger. Closely following her is Grace, who's the second oldest. She is the wife of the deceased, so she's the widow. She has one daughter, Blana, and they are central to the story, obviously, because we're trying to figure out who killed her husband. Next up, we have Ursula, who is the third sister. She's married and has 3 children. Her husband seems great. We're gonna get into that a little bit later. Next up, we have Bibi. She's introduced very dramatically. She has one eye and wears an eye patch. She has a lot of fire and she's fun to watch. She's married to her wife and has a son. And then finally, we have Becca, who's short for Rebecca. She is single, but very much dating. She's the youngest baby of the family. She's 29. She is not a child.
It's not.
But those are the 5 core characters of the show. So when we refer to someone, I hope that kind of gives you an idea of who we're talking about. So let's really kind of dive into the show as a whole, starting with the main premise. As we're looking for who killed JP, we find out episode 1 basically that the 4 sisters, excluding Grace, who's the wife, they all want him dead. They kind of said, let's kill him. Let's get together and kill this horrible man who is horrible to our sister.
And at first you're like, wow, like you want to kill your in-law, like that is actually a horrible thing to do. But very soon after, we find out that JP is from the depths of hell. Like he is actually a horrible person. He's nicknamed the prick on the show, and I feel like that's even a nice nickname for him. Think of Joffrey from Game of Thrones, and then
just worse.
Make it worse.
Because Joffrey was a child. Joffrey grew up in medieval times, so his behavior is still bad, but at least there's context. JP is like walking around in 2022 in modern Ireland and just choosing to be the worst person on the planet. The first episode really shows us that he is a bad husband. It starts out relatively minor. It's, he's not straight up, beating her up, but he's tearing down her self-esteem. He's making little comments, and her sisters can tell that something is wrong, that the way he's been treating her as a partner isn't good. So even though we as the audience might be like, he's kind of a dick, but it's nothing too bad, it's absolutely that bad. He's bad. Oh God, he's awful.
He calls her mommy. And I feel like that is one of the most offensive things that he does to her, because it's like, you can call your wife anything. You can call her babe, honey, spice, cutie, or wife, or like just Grace, her actual name, and you choose to call her mommy. And there was a scene that was so hilarious where he was like, I think he was looking for something, and he's like, mommy, and then his mom and the wife was like, yes, at the same time, and I was like, Oh my god.
Right. The four sisters have decided, because of his treatment of their sister, that they want to kill him. And we kind of see it start out as a joke. So it's Christmas Day. They have a usual Christmas holiday routine tradition that they've been doing since their parents were alive, where they go jump off a cliff into the water. They've done it every single year, and this year JP does a really manipulative thing where he goes up to his wife Grace and he's like, oh, let's drink some champagne.
This was the day of, right?
Yeah, this was the morning of the day they were supposed to be going for the event.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I love you, we're great. And when it's time for her to leave, he goes, what are you doing? You can't leave. You drank a glass of champagne. You can't drive. And she's like, no, it was just one glass. And he kind of shoves her and makes sure she can't leave. But like, that's just a perfect depiction of his manipulation. He's the one who goes to her, offers her alcohol with the intention to stop her from driving. And again, she has like less than a glass of champagne. She can drive, it's fine. But that's kind of the tipping point for her sisters, where it's like, he's gone too far. Taking this away from her is more than is acceptable. And that's when they start joking about killing him.
And I think it's worth it to note that like JP is the kind of person that every move he makes is calculated. Because at first when I started watching the show and I saw that scene where like she had already told him, in fact I think the daughter told him that mom's upstairs getting ready to go swimming with her sisters, and he knew like this was a ritual. He knew, because I think they had been married for over 10 years at this point. He already knows about the ritual. And he saw how excited she was dressing up, looking nice. So he comes up to her with like this glass of wine, and like they're having a nice moment. And like in Grace's head, she's thinking, oh, my husband is in a feisty mood, it's holidays, he's trying to get me feisty, let's do things as husband and wife, he's being nice. But that is actually part of his plan. So that niceness is not even real. He just wants to be able to come later on and say, hey, you've had a few drinks. And I feel like that's actually what makes it really bad, because Grace thinks it's real. So even after he told her that she couldn't drive, she still saw it as, yeah, I guess I can't actually drive because he's looking out for me, and he was just nice to me like a few minutes ago, and he's just like really passionate about road safety or something. Like, I don't know, but it's these little things that really break you down slowly.
Absolutely. And so her sisters are aware. And even though it starts off as a joke for all the sisters, except for BB, who fully wants to kill JP from the beginning, like over the upcoming weeks/months, different things keep happening. And they're like, it goes from being a joke to being something serious. So BB, like I mentioned from the get-go, she is just anti-JP. They got into a car accident a couple years ago where she lost her eye, and it was because JP was trying to scare her. They have trauma from car accidents because that's how their parents died. So BB is just anti-JP. She, that meme where it's like, if there's one person in the world against JP, it's me. If everyone is for JP, I've left the world. That's BB. She's his number one hater, and I live for it. But the second person to seriously consider going up against JP is Eva, who's the oldest sister. And her reason was kind of twofold. On one hand, they work together and he's horrible to her at work. He's like just misogynistic and horrible, just reprehensible as a person. And that was already putting her off to him. But then they have a family gathering where he slut shames his daughter because she gets a bra. And at that point, Eva kind of realizes it's better for her niece to have no father than to have this father. And that's what pushes her from, this is a joke, to, okay, we should kill him. Let's get rid of him. So that's Eva's turning point.
Next up is Ursula. She is the third sister. She is a nurse, a doctor or something. She's in the medical field. She has 3 kids.
Yeah.
And a husband, a very, very loving husband, as we mentioned before. She's actually having an affair with Ben, this artist. Is he an artist? We don't even really know what he does, but she's having an affair with this guy, Ben. They meet up in hotels from, time to time. She's being really, really careless about it. I don't know how old she is, but it just doesn't make sense. But JP randomly runs into her at the hotel, and he puts two and two together.
Because he has eyes and he can see. And when you're looking into someone's eyes lovingly as you hold their hand and walk out of a hotel, you clearly just had sex. Ugh.
Yes. And he starts to blackmail her, and he starts to threaten to tell her husband. And that is actually what pushes Ursula over the edge, and like that's how she finally agreed, like, okay, this guy needs to go.
And it's actually, okay, so this scene, to me, is pure comedy. Like, it's a bit dramatic and stressful. So basically, there's an incident when the whole family's together, except for Ursula's husband, who's at work, where basically JP does something and Ursula accidentally sends a picture of her nether regions to JP. And JP's like, well, I'm gonna send this to your husband. So Ursula books it out of this. Like, she grabs her 3 kids. She's like, we need to leave now. We need to leave now. And her sisters are you okay? And she's like, yeah, everything is great. Everything is great. Fantastic. Okay, I'll talk to you later. She gets to her husband's locker, opens it, grabs his phone, and she's like screaming at her kid, what's his password? And her kid is like, we shouldn't do that. She's like, I will let you pierce your ears. What's his password? Gets into the phone and deletes the messages. And like, what Ursula is doing by cheating is horrible, but I admire the dedication, because for those 15 minutes, she's like, I would rather die than my husband finds out that I am cheating this way I am. So she gets away with it for a moment. But that's like my favorite scene. I don't think we can put clips, but she's literally frantic. She's like, I'm gonna risk.
God. Let me talk a little bit about that, because it's really unclear why she's cheating.
Yeah.
It's unclear because her husband seems to be nice. He takes care of the kids, and I think she mentioned briefly to her sisters, like, when I'm with Ben, I feel alive.
I feel
blah,
young.
blah, blah. I'm like, you can actually sit your husband down and like talk about these issues, like, instead of actually going through all of that. So it's like, it's really, really unclear why she's doing what she's doing. Like,
she's just dissatisfied with her life, and she's doing this thing for a thrill, because it's not even like she's not in a similar situation to Grace where JP pushes the affection away. Her husband wants to fuck her. Mm-hmm. Like, he's trying to initiate it, and she's running to the bathroom because Ben wrote on her body and she can't let him see it. She's just not.
So I just did not understand what the problem was. Like, are you just bad vibes?
She's just bored, and I don't think that makes it okay to cheat on your husband, especially because he asked about it, and multiple times on the show he's like, are we okay? I feel like we're disconnected, where are you? Our kids are noticing.
I love that they gave us those things, because it's not like this guy is just oblivious. Mm-hmm. He can clearly see that something's wrong with his wife. He's clearly like opening up, the communication lines, like giving you the chance to speak up, and like nothing.
Rude. Anyway, basically after that incident where she decides a car accident is a better situation than her husband finding out about her cheating, she kind of gets on board with the killing as well. She's like, okay, I want to keep my affair secret, so I'm going to murder my brother-in-law. Okay, I made it sound a bit meaner than it is, because he is a bad husband to Grace. I just love that her motivation really at the end of the day stemmed from, I want to keep my affair a secret. And that brings us to the final sister, Becca.
Becca. Becca is the youngest sister, and she gives the vibe of someone an adult who has actually never really grown up, or even ever had to grow up, or take responsibility for anything. It seems like she's a masseuse or something.
You said it seems like that's her business.
It seems like, because
no, but
she's just offering random strangers massages. Like, where is your certificate? Are you going to break my back? We don't know, because it could be sensual. It could be like other things she's trying to do. I don't know. But yeah, her house is a mess. I don't know. She's supposed to be like
artsy,
feisty, but no, you are actually dirty. You are a dirty pig. That's what you are. But yeah, Becca, how does she finally decide? So she wants to start a massage salon or business or spa. I don't know what to call it, but she makes this business proposal to JP, and throughout JP is like really concentrating, he's really listening. He's like, oh, this is an interesting idea.
I'm so angry. Before, like, I just want to point out, she tells her sister, she's like, I'm gonna give him a business proposal to ask for money, and all of her sisters are like, this is a bad idea. Do not do it. And because she's stubborn and headstrong, she's like, no, I'm smarter than you. I can do anything I want. And so that's when she decides to go ahead with the presentation or proposal or whatever.
And JP just kind of alludes to the fact that he's interested and it's a good idea. And she somehow takes that to mean he is going to invest.
Don't put it on her, because JP insinuates that he's gonna do it. He's like, yeah, because it's not like she came.
He alluded to it.
So he didn't straight up say yes.
No, he never said yes. And that's what he said to Grace when she was in bed. He was like, I never said yes. And that is so crazy. That's so manipulative, and that's like insane. Like, but yeah, I think it just shows her level of maturity, how like
The lack of.
yeah, or the lack of, because she really went ahead to like, you know,
She put down a
yeah,
She put down a deposit
on her credit card,
like with no guarantee from this man that everyone in your family doesn't trust.
like where was the facts? Because this like, okay, they have been married for years. Grace has been married to JP for years. You can clearly see, like, was she oblivious to like all of the manipulation?
I just feel like she's kind of selfish. Like she didn't care enough until it burned her. Like when all of her siblings were talking about like, oh, Grace is so quiet. She's the one that was like, well, Grace has always been quiet. Like stop trying to make this okay. It's not okay.
It's not okay. So it took actually you losing money for you to hate him
Properly.
Properly.
Can you tell we don't like that?
I don't dislike her.
I dislike her so much.
I don't dislike her. I think she is just like a product of her upbringing and her environment. You know, she's a small child. She was raised by her sisters.
She's 29.
Yes, but she was 1 year old or 2 years old when like she lost her parents in a tragic
She's still
accident.
too grown for this. It's
yes,
too much.
But she has a good heart.
She's 30,
She has
basically.
a good soul.
Is it even good? It's like tumultuous, but it's fine. She had to learn. Okay, I have strong issues with Becca because of her age, but besides the point, basically she puts down the down payment. JP's like, lol, no, I never said I was gonna give you money. So
who said that?
that's when she freaks out and it decides that, yeah, I want to murder him. So really, I feel like Eva's the only one who starts out with truly altruistic reasons to kill him. She's like, this is for the good of my family. The other three are kind of like, revenge, I hate you, which is valid because JP is awful.
I think Eva had her reasons.
Yeah, but like
years ago.
Yeah, but like, I think the thing that really pushed her over, because up until the brow thing, she was still kind of like, no, we shouldn't. But then when she saw that, she was like, oh God, no.
Yeah,
this man
Eva's like their mom. I love Eva.
I
She's
love
just
her
trying
too.
her best.
She deserves better. Life is just throwing shit at her and it's unfortunate. Anyway, that's kind of what each sister goes through, or the four sisters who make a pact to kill him. That's why they all decide to, you know, commit murder.
And while all this is happening, I just want to talk a little bit about their neighbor called Roger. He's a nice guy. He's Christian. He's
a good Christian. I just want to point that out. I feel like in a lot of shows we'll watch, whenever there's a Christian character, they're kind of a villain. But he's following, he's walking in the steps of Christ. He's a good man.
Yeah, and every now and then he just comes in to check on Grace. Not even check on Grace, just check on the entire family. Just a neighborly thing to do.
He'll bring food, he'll offer them activities, he'll say, he's just a nice man.
Yep, and the more nice things he did, the more upset JP got. And like, it's like he was so irritated by his niceness. Like, are you serious? Yeah, we just wanted to mention that they have a neighbor.
So they have a really nice neighbor. So FYI, that will come back later. So that's kind of all of them making the decision to go forward with committing murders. Let's talk about the attempts. So they try 5 times to kill this man. And it's not like 5, ooh, I'm gonna bump into you. 5 elaborate murder attempts, which realistically any of them could have taken him out. He just had a lot of luck.
Yeah, why do bad people always have so much luck in this world? That's a question that we need to ask. Okay,
but let's get into it. Let's talk about the fun and interesting. I think the murder attempts are probably the most comedic aspects of the show, ironically enough. So the first one is blowing up the house. So the first attempt was when the only people who were actually involved in planning a murder were Eva and Bibi. So it was just the two of them. The other 2 sisters weren't involved yet. They decided that they can commit arson. They can blow things up. So knowing that JP was going to a cabin, they set up some sort of wire thing that after a while, like they set a fire, the house exploded. And it was successful, it worked, it wasn't traceable. Unfortunately, like 2 minutes before the bomb went off or the explosion went off, JP walks out of the house. So he's just standing outside screaming at the house. But he makes an insurance claim for it and actually gets the money back. So we know that they could have succeeded. They wouldn't have gone caught. There was no evidence that it was on purpose and not an accident. So that's attempt 1. They try and kill him in a house explosion, which I think is kind of overkill, Loki, for your first attempt.
Yeah, that's how you know it's Bibi's idea.
That's true. So second attempt.
Yeah, so the second attempt actually involved Ursula, the nurse, who just knows stuff about random ways to kill a person. And I remember watching this scene and just like realizing that, wow, doctors actually have the ability to kill you. Like they can just get access to drugs and kill you. And these are the people that will put our lives in. People that cheat. Anywho, yeah, they decide to actually poison him through an untraceable chemical. I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to try to understand how that works. But it's supposed to be untraceable, and they will label the whole thing a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so
they put it
every Wednesday. Okay, you know what I noticed about insane characters? They have these rituals that they just stick to, and so they're making it so easy to kill them, because why do you have to eat this thing every Wednesday? So much so that everybody knows, even the sisters know, because I'm sure Grace has come to complain to them like, hey, I have to cook this thing for this guy every Wednesday. Yeah, so every Wednesday he eats liver. Random. I don't know what to think about that.
I like liver. You know,
I like it, but it's like he has made it a thing now, and why should it be a thing?
Okay, I know we're dragging it, but it would be so easy if I always knew what I was going to eat. The worst part of my day is having to figure out.
So you're just going to eat a slab of liver?
She was cooking it and seasoning it.
It was actually a slab. I think she actually has to make a slab of liver for him to eat. Like, I actually think so. But yeah, so they wanted to use that chance to, inject the liver with some of the chemicals and, get him dead, get him killed. And I think Eva was the one who switched out the liver that Grace shopped for with the poison liver. And while she was trying to cook it, JP's savior or spirit, or like, I don't even know, angel or guardian, pushed Grace a little bit. And so she dropped the liver on the floor, and the dog ended up eating it. And that's how the dog ended up dying instead of JP.
So JP is alive, the dog is dead. And it's so, the scene where they find out is hilarious. So at first they think JP is dead and they're like, okay, oh, this is so shocking. And then they find out it's the dog, and like now they're crying, BB is yelling, she's like, oh no! And it's so funny how they're much more concerned about the dog than the human being, although he sucks a lot.
Yeah.
Now, third attempt. Okay, so to me, this is actually the most ridiculous attempt. I know you think it's the fifth one, but to me, this was wild. I just didn't understand how they thought they were going to get away with this. This was paintball. So basically, the plan was to put frozen paintball pellets in the gun, shoot him in the head. He had an injury from the car crash he had with BB. So they're like, shoot him in his soft spot, he'll die. And they demonstrated this by shooting a watermelon that exploded. So I just think if they had succeeded,
his head would have exploded.
Like, even if his head explodes, I just feel like the police will have some questions to ask. I don't think they're gonna be like, oh, it wasn't an accident.
His head is not a watermelon. He actually has a skull like with bones.
But like, okay, so what was like? Would they have just been like a small cave in that part of his head?
Yeah.
I just feel like they would have like done some sort of inquiry, like why did that kill him?
For sure.
It was sketchy. But anyway, BB has great aim, by the way, which is something that's kind of alluded to a little bit in the show. She has all these awards because she's so talented, and clearly with her injury, she's not as good as she used to be because she can't see the same as she used to. And that's part of her resentment towards JP. So she's like just festering in rage for years because he took this thing away from her. So she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna shoot him. And they practice and it's perfect. So the day of, she's holding the gun, she's aiming, she's about to do it. And this child, Becca, who has no
young adult. She's a young adult.
She's 30. I don't even understand why she has no self-control. You know the plan. You know we're about to shoot him. You know how much care and aim and precision is necessary. And she's like, you know what would be funny? I'm just gonna punch BB in the shoulder. So she nudges BB, who then misses and hits an innocent bystander in the eye. So in a moment of weird comedy, she has now shot out someone else's eye. She's done to someone else what was done to her, and she's
an eye for an eye.
Oh, that's the name of the episode too. It's kind of poetic.
I didn't actually know that.
Now you know. But she was really, really upset, and so am I. She slaps Becca, and Becca's like, oh my god, you slapped me, but like, you deserve to be slapped. You know we're trying murder here. Why would you do this? Anyway, that's attempt 3, and that's how it goes wrong. Again, I'm not really sure what their plan was if it went successfully, but Becca
they were so desperate to kill this guy. were so desperate.
That's true. Before we talk about the next attempt, I just want to introduce a character that we haven't talked about yet, and that is Gabriel, who is Eva's coworker. So he's her work bestie. At first, she has kind of a crush on him, and they spend a lot of time together, and they start making out, and then, only then, does Gabriel go, "Oh, by the way, I'm gay." I feel like this was pertinent information, but it's fine. Eva is fine with it. She gets mad for a second. As you know, I'm here taking off my clothes for you. You should have told me this 10 hours ago. Yeah. But it's fine. They're
multiple dates ago.
They're really, really close. And he's kind of the person that encourages her at work and says, "You're brilliant. You're fantastic. Fuck JP. You can do this." And, they get along. They have similar sense of humor and whatever. So just a heads up to who he is in case you're wondering why we're mentioning him.
So the fourth attempt on this man's life. At this point, I had already given up because I was like, he's definitely going to live. And I don't know if the funeral was a lie. They would open up the coffin and be like, "Oh my God, that's not JP, that's someone else." Because I was like, how have they made 3 attempts? And some of them were good. The liver one was good.
That was really good. They should have.
The liver one was good.
I'm surprised that they gave up on that. I would have just done it again. There's no other dog to die. Anyway.
I don't know. Like the liver one, I was scared that like the daughter or like maybe she would taste it just to see. Like, no, that's just a lot. So they decide to drown him this 4th time, and they get another drug. Was it the same drug or another one?
No, this was Rohypnol. So they get the date rape drug. Basically, you put it in someone's drink or into their food. They ingest it. They lose their memory. There's no trace of it in your system. Ladies, be careful out there when you're taking drinks. People are scary. Anyway,
so he has this nasal spray that he takes with him every day, and he like sprays like every 5 minutes or so. Again, another weird ritual. I don't know what sort of allergies he had or something, but yeah. So they decide to inject a little bit of the drug into his nasal spray, and then when he passes out, they would drown him in his
bathtub. So it looks like a suicide. And this was perfect timing. He had gone into this huge fight with Grace. He calls her and he's like, "If you don't come back right now,
you don't know what I'm going to do."
It was perfect. Like, it was like if they had succeeded, it looks like a suicide. He left a note in that message, and he's kind of psycho.
Can we talk about why they had the fight in the first place? So he is actually I think he has some sort of erectile dysfunction or something. And Grace has just been suffering because she's a good wife. She just, I don't even know if she's ever had to, had an orgasm or ever like used a vibrator before, but I think she got one. Did she get one? Or did
her sisters gave her a vibrator because she was talking about like how they haven't had sex and how she initiates and she feels like it's her fault, and it's like really heartbreaking because she's done nothing wrong, and her sisters are like, "No, you're beautiful, you're perfect, you want to sleep with him, he's the problem." And they're like, "Here's a toy, have a good time without him, we believe in you." And she tries to use it, and she actually isn't able to. She has all these mental blocks with JP, and she's not even able to have a good time. And
exactly.
She doesn't even use it. I just want to bring that up. She doesn't even get an orgasm.
She doesn't. And JP finds this toy and just flips out. And she's like, "We have to do something. Do you want to go see a doctor? Like, we have to do something. I really need something from you." And then he threatens her, and he's like, "Oh, you know what I'm going to do next." So this was actually a perfect plan.
Yeah, basically Grace and their daughter go off, and he's so angry that she left. Like, I don't even know what he wanted her to do. Just stay at home and stop their kid from going on this event. Whatever. Anyway, so that's why he leaves the voicemail. And then the sisters are like, "This is perfect. We're going to drug him. We're going to put him in the bathtub. He's going to drown. No one will suspect." Let's talk about how that attempt actually went.
So they did manage to drug him, and he did pass out. But then again, the spirit of wickedness in him was strong. So it was he just knew. His mind just knew, and he was in like a trance, and he started sleepwalking.
Yeah.
And so he woke up, actually dressed up. First of all, he peed in the closet, and ew. After that, even in his trance, he's disgusting. Like, do you understand? This guy was just disgusting from beginning to end. But yeah, he literally sleepwalks all the way to his car and drives all the way to the dock where he has a boat, and he's trying to get on his boat and drive it or something. And while he was trying to get onto his boat, he kind of falls into the water. And at that point, I was like, hallelujah! Like, he has drowned.
It's actually perfect because he did it himself. He got into the car, he drove himself, he got into the boat. It's perfect. You can't blame anyone else.
Except that the sisters were worried that, he was going to cause an accident on the road or something. So they decided to follow him to this place. So now they were at the site of the attempted murder.
Attempted murder, accidental drowning, call it what you will. Anyway, it's all great. It's fantastic. They're excited. There's a scene where when he falls in for a second, Becca's like, oh no, he fell. And she wants to get out of the car and help him. They're like, no, we want him to die. It's great. So Gabriel lives on a boat. I don't know if I said that, but if I didn't, surprise. Because he comes onto his deck, looks to his side and sees the drowning JP. And like the hero he is, he dives into the water and saves his life. So you just have to ask, like, in the real world, does this happen? Do bad people just have good things happen to them over and over and over again?
When I tell you this man was using jazz, like, I honestly feel like he had 9 lives. It was a cat. That cat was coming for his life. So that's why he had to kill the cat.
I'm dead. But yeah, so turns out he's alive. He's been saved. Everyone thinks it's a suicide attempt because he can't really remember. And then he's like, I think people are trying to kill me. And that just sounds ridiculous. Like, who's trying to kill you? Wink. So that was attempt number 4. And then we get to the 5th and final attempt. And again, this is just an example of why I have so many issues with Becca. But let's get into it. I don't know if we mentioned this previously, but we do see a little bit of JP's mom on this show. So she's older. She seems to have some sort of dementia where she knows things, but she's also forgotten things and confuses people. Mina is her name, just like mine. She's a nice old lady, although she did some shady stuff when she was younger, but that's besides the point. Becca spends a lot of time with her. Becca really likes her. They have a relationship. She's also the literally only person we ever see Becca massage. So this massaging job she's doing, I'm not seeing evidence. But yeah, so she spends a lot of time with her in her house. So she goes to Mina's house. She takes care of her. She asks questions. She learns things about JP's past. So while there one day, Mina's like, oh, JP spends a lot of time in the basement. So she goes down to the basement, she finds a freezer, she finds a key, she opens the freezer, she's like, this is weird, and we have some background story about JP's dad. He used to stuff animals for fun. So, there are a lot of animal carcasses in the freezer, no big deal, it's so cool. She opens the drawer and finds the body of JP's father, George. Up until this point, the only references we've had to George are Mina, JP's mom, repeatedly saying George will come home, George will come home. And, we have the assumption that George walked out one day and never came back and that Mina is crazy. Turns out she's not crazy. She knows her husband would never have left her and he's in the freezer in the basement. I just can't with JP. He's just such a horror. Like every episode, there would be a new thing to just be like, oh my god, he's the worst person ever.
Why keep the body?
He just didn't want them to find out he was dead.
You can literally dissolve the body or something.
That's a lot of work, though.
Is JP above that?
You're right.
He's not above that.
Anyway, so they find out about the body. Becca tells the siblings, and at first they're excited. They're like, oh, let's just tell the police. But then they figure out that they can't do that. Grace would stand by her man. She'd wait for him in jail. So they're like, no, we still have to kill him. But then Becca comes out with the brilliant idea. Let's just lock him in the freezer and then he'll die there and it'll look like an accident. It's not that the idea itself is preposterous, but they get there, they try it out, they see if there is, soundproofing. It's too sketch. There are not enough details and certainties and assurances for them to do this, considering how many times they've already messed up.
It's a bad idea, especially because how are they going to rule that an accident? What, he hit his leg somewhere and couldn't stand up? Like, how would you walk into a fridge and not be able to walk out of it?
They said he fell asleep and just
fell asleep in the cold, and you wouldn't wake up because you're uncomfortable. You wake up when you're too hot, you wake up when you're too cold. So how was that a good idea? Becca.
Anyway, Eva, forever the voice of reason, she states it plainly. This is a bad idea. We're not gonna do this. Becca, don't do this. I just don't think she could have been any clearer. And what Becca heard is, I'm gonna do it anyway because my sister doesn't believe in me. Becca has this whole complex about being the youngest and it's just infuriating. So she decides to do this without any of her sisters knowing, without their blessings. So she does the plan. She hears someone go into the freezer. She locks the door. She goes out. She falls asleep. She comes back. She unlocks the freezer and she goes to her sister and she's like, it's done. He's dead. Okay. All right. time for family dinner or family lunch. So they're all together. They're waiting for Grace to call them and tell them that JP is dead, only for them to hear a door ring. They're like, weird, but okay. And JP is standing there looking at them, and they're all freaking out. They're like, how's this possible? And then Becca realizes if JP is not the one she killed, it must have been Mina. So yes, she accidentally froze Mina to death because she doesn't know how to listen to instructions. JP is alive, Mina is dead, Becca is wrecked with guilt, and the other sisters are mixed with anger and frustration that now they have to deal with this situation. Basically, that was the last attempt they have before JP finally actually dies. And at that point, they're just kind of over everything. They don't know what to do. They can't go to the police. They've actually murdered a human being at this point. Like, it's gone too far. Yeah. I know we kind of gloss over it on the show, but I'm not going to say they. Becca killed someone.
Yep.
And they're just like, oh, well, you know, she was old, so it's okay. It's not okay. Mina had a lot of energy.
It's not.
Fine. So let's talk a little bit about JP's actual death and the surrounding situations. All we know, it's Grace's birthday party. They all go to like the woods somewhere, to a cottage or whatever. Grace is in the cottage with her husband JP, and the four sisters are all in four separate places without any alibis. So Becca is getting drunk because she's depressed because she killed Mina. Ursula is screwing Ben because she has no self-control and doesn't know how to stop having an affair that she keeps saying she's going to stop. Ugh, I just can't even with her.
They're in love.
Ugh, love.
Like, what exactly is their plan? So he's going to rent a house, and what, she's going to leave her children and her family to.
I think she thought she was going to get a divorce and get 50-50 custody. Anyway, yeah, we're not happy with Ursula's decision making either, but whatever. So really quickly, we want to talk about the actual death of JP, and that happens where all the sisters have no alibi. And it's so weird to me that they went to this event where they, you know, Eva was like, I'm gonna kill him. And, you know, half of them are depressed and they're all sad and stressed. And then they just all go do their own separate things all night. The next day they find out JP is dead. And then they're all just like, yay, he's dead.
That scene where they're like standing outside the cabin, you know, they have waved Grace off and they're just laughing. That was actually one of my favorite scenes in television because it was so... it was so heartwarming, and I know it's gonna sound weird that I am saying that the death of someone and their reactions to the death is heartwarming, but oh my god, like I was actually stressed watching the show. I was actually stressed along with them because I really wanted him to die, but I didn't want any of them to get into trouble. So the fact that they were all off the hook at that point, I was like, oh, thank God.
I agree with you because even I didn't like what they were doing with their time off. I don't like Becca getting drunk and not being aware of her surroundings. I don't know why Ursula has to be cheating. It bugs me so much that she couldn't keep her vagina to herself. Like, you're literally supposed to be celebrating your sister's birthday. Why do you need to go have sex with this man right now? It's one night.
I have no idea.
Like, I don't know why she was so obsessed with him.
Are there people like that, like in real life? Like,
if you are, maybe get some help. But this is, you know, they come in, he's dead, it's great. And in addition to the things we've already kind of talked about that JP did prior to his death, like we find out other things. You know, he kills a cat and then makes Grace think that she did it, like, you know, because gaslighting is fun. And that's just more evidence of how manipulative and terrible and abusive of a partner that he is, because she thinks it's her fault. Her daughter blames her, and he's just so happy. He's like, yeah, I've made her think that she did this and she doesn't want to have a life outside. And he's just genuinely so terrible. Like, honestly, at a point in the show, I felt like it was kind of overkill. Like, every episode he did another evil thing, and I was really like, by episode 1, I'm like, he's evil, it's enough. Episode 2, I'm like, okay, I get it, we hate him.
But the funniest thing is that it didn't feel like overkill to me, because it still felt very in line with his character, like what he would do. Like, he's not like, if it was overkill, then it would be like, all right, I have actually killed someone or something.
But I mean, he watched his dad die so he could steal money from him.
Exactly.
It's just so much.
Because ultimately he's a coward. He can't fight. When Ben confronted him, he literally ran off. Like, he can't fight. So it's like he lets things happen, but he pushes the needle up until the point where it's like, okay, I actually didn't commit the crime, but I have orchestrated the whole thing around it, and I'm happy about it.
You're right though, because you know what? When Gabriel fights him in the bathroom, he can't defend himself. Gabriel is shorter than him, and this man is like, ooh, shaking. Like, it's awful. But like, you're right. The people he is aggressive towards are the people that he thinks he can win against. So it's people like Grace. It's people like his neighbor. We talked a bit about the neighbor Roger, and what he did to Roger is so reprehensible. So he basically frames him as a pedophile. He tries to get him in trouble with the police. He makes allegations. Thankfully, he doesn't get convicted because he doesn't do anything, but it's out there. People think you're a pedophile. People are talking about it, and it's fucking awful because he didn't do anything to deserve it.
It's like the line is here and JP goes all the way here, because even if you wanted to put him down a notch or get rid of him a little bit, he knew exactly what to do to make sure that not only was he out of their lives, everybody else would be shunning him. And that's a very good reason for him to tell Grace, hey, let's not associate ourselves with this guy anymore. It's a legit reason, because other than that, he couldn't come to Grace and be like, remember that our nice neighbor Roger, just don't talk to him again, I don't like him. Grace is gonna be like, why?
But you know what, I agree with you that the logic for what he did made sense, but honestly, it was just so unnecessarily cruel, because he could have been the one to cut Roger off instead of having Grace. He could have just gone to Roger and said, I don't like you, stop seeing me, don't come and see my family. I don't think Roger would have liked it, but at least he would have still had a reputation. JP looked for the most hurtful thing he could do.
That's what I'm saying. It was very, very intentional. It was planned.
It was just so mean. I think it's the second worst. Okay, he does so many horrible things.
Oh no, I can't even begin to rank. That's gonna be a whole other video.
Okay, he's top 5 worst things he does.
Top 5.
Alleging someone is a pedophile. It's because Roger works with kids in a church. It just,
Whose mind actually goes there? Come on.
It's fine. It's whatever. He sucks. We hate him. Ugh, JP the worst. Anyway, he's dead now. Yay!
Can we talk about Eva and her job and JP and the promotion and everything that happened around that, because that was one of the things that infuriated me so much.
It doesn't make any sense. Well, you know what? It's because he's a horrible, evil person. But
let's talk about the boss.
You can talk. I know you have feelings about the boss, so I'm gonna let you just share them.
Okay. So, as a boss, right, who has an employee who is doing so well, who is performing so excellently, who is up for this promotion solely because they are good at their job. Everybody else at the company also agrees that she is up for this promotion, she deserves it, she's good for the job. And all of a sudden, some guy who nobody likes, I need to mention it, nobody in the office actually likes this guy. Some guy comes to you and it's like, all right, I want to be up for the promotion. At that point, we don't even really know much about his credentials or if he was even properly qualified, because at that point, that alone, the fact that he was like, all right, I'm going to accept, both of you are going to run, alongside each other. That alone could have just been a big insult, if he actually looked at how they both performed. But we don't really know much about that, so let me not even say that. Let me even assume that they were actually both qualified for the position, because JP didn't even want this. And then this guy starts whispering nonsense into your ear. And you know what? There's this unspoken bond that men have between each other. Even a stranger, you would want to believe them over somebody that you have more information over. Your employee has never showed up late to a meeting, showed up drunk to any meeting, has never done anything outrageous, and she has done nothing but help your company, and you are going to believe that she has a drinking problem that's going to impede her performance without actually speaking to her, just because you heard from her brother-in-law. Make it make sense to me. I don't understand.
He's a bad boss.
How are you even running a business?
It's misogyny. It's the belief that a man must be telling the truth and a woman is weak and her emotions are all over the place. That honestly, also because she's single and has no kids, you're she's a spinster who's unlovable, so that means she's untrustworthy. It's all these biases, and that's why.
Horrible. You at least owe her a conversation.
At the very least.
Oh God,
I can't even. Vomit. But yeah, so basically JP has been horrible up until this point. He's dead. We're happy. We love it. We don't know who did it
at this point. Yeah.
All the sisters we didn't do it. It was an accident. And we also don't know how he dies. We just know he's dead. So we know it was weird, because let's talk about the aftermath. We meet some new characters. Okay, when I say we meet, this happens in the first episode of the season, but we're talking about this chronologically, so bear with us. We meet the Claflin brothers, and that's Matthew and Thomas, and I hate them. I hate them so much.
I don't hate Matt. I hate Thomas. Matt, he's cute. He's conflicted. I love those kind of things.
He's cute, I guess, but ugh. Okay, so just a quick recap of why they are the way they are. So these two brothers, they work for an insurance firm. They are the people who have to pay out the claim to Grace for JP's death. this is so simple. By the way, I'm going to add part of my bias. I don't like insurance agencies. You're bad vibes. Like, you don't want to give people money. So they're already starting on the wrong foot. But basically, Thomas does not want to pay out the insurance money because his father, who was the head of the insurance agent, committed fraud. That's the most important thing. He committed fraud and died. So what that means to me is that without any evidence or anything to tell him he's right, Thomas has decided that he will cover his lying, fraudulent father's horrible behavior up and start accusing people who have lost loved ones of being murderers, of committing fraud, of doing bad things, because rather than admit that his dad was a dick, he's going to harass people who are mourning. He goes to funerals. He's just...
How do you go to a funeral and start to question people about the death? Where were you the night JP died? Like, it's just, there is no, like, decorum.
And he's not good at it. Like, that's the thing, right? It's not like he was suave and, like, secretive and you couldn't tell. He was eating... First of all, this is gonna sound so pro. Like, I just have manners. Close your mouth when you chew. Like, my husband's dead body's here and you're asking me where I was the night he died.
And you're eating my food.
He was so freaking annoying. He was stealing trash. He was lying. He was going too far. And he wasn't a police officer. He had no rights to do this. He was basically bullying this woman. And even though we know that they tried to kill him, he was just running on a quote-unquote hunch because he wanted to continue his fraud. And it's pointless to me because, okay, let's say that JP gets away with it. Who cares? The next person who died or who dies, who has a claim with you, is going to come for the money. Are you just going to accuse every single client?
Like, what was his plan?
I just hate him. He was so obnoxious. He was showing up places. He was jumping to wrong conclusions. He was bullying his brother. He was treating these women horribly.
He was forging signatures.
He was breaking the law so that he wouldn't have to spend money.
Yeah, and like, I'm supposed to feel bad every time he mentions that he has a pregnant wife.
What does that have to do with me? What do the sisters have to do with that? I'm sorry you knocked up your wife without any sense of the future. Like, maybe next time make better decisions. Maybe when you found out your dad was committing fraud, you should have gone to the police instead of abetting it and going, yeah, you know what would be funny? I want to commit fraud too. I didn't like him. I have no sympathy for him. I don't care that his wife was pregnant. I don't care that he was sad about his dad or he had a bad relationship with his brother. To me, he was the next antagonist. JP may have been on 1,000, but Thomas was like on 10, and that was too much for me. I'm over him. And then there was Matthew, who was less annoying, but he's basically the equivalent to Becca. Wishy-washy, doesn't know what he's doing with his life. Oh, good vibes.
He was in a band.
Can you even hear what you're saying? He was in a band. He left England because his band fell apart because one of his band members slept with his fiance or something.
Come on.
It's giving, I don't know what my dreams are. Because why are you now you're working with your brother where you're complaining because you hate the job? Then go get another job.
It's not easy.
Anyway, him and Becca start a relationship, which I hate. This is gonna be just me complaining for the next 10. They date, but both of them are like, oh no, we shouldn't be together. They're both lying to their siblings, but also lying to each other and stealing information from each other. And it's very similar to my issue with Ursula. Why can you not control your genitals? Why do you have to have sex with this person? There are so many other people.
If you meet someone and you have a strong connection with them, you see, we are put on this earth.
No, God.
To make connections with people. And when you find a person, you have to hold on to them. At the point where they met, they didn't know who they were. So, like, can you blame them?
I can blame them.
Can you see the pool is very shallow?
The pool isn't shallow. My guy left London. Look, I'm so unsympathetic. They're like,
the dating pool is shallow.
They're like acting like they're in love with each other. You've known each other for a month. Relax.
People fall in love. See, there's such a thing as love at first sight.
It's disgusting. I hate it. They're the worst.
I liked it.
I
liked the storyline because that just added some complexity into it, and obviously that was just a way of like us having to see what's going on with insurance and what's going on with Becca and like just moving the story forward. But I'm not making excuses for what Matt did because he fucked up a little bit sometimes.
A little bit.
He fucked up a few times. But he was very conflicted because his brother was literally forcing him to like go here and question these people. And you could tell that he was so uncomfortable with like questioning people like live this. Because that's where that's their livelihood.
But
what am I supposed to do? Go bankrupt instead?
It just feels like him and Becca have the same excuse where it's like, oh, our siblings are in charge of our lives. But like, this is not a 16-year-old. You guys are 30. Like, you guys could have teenage children right now.
He did it because the brother was saying how he's gonna go to jail.
His brother should go to jail. I'm not saying that he should be okay with that.
That's his brother now. Like, I think he did it more for the brother and like the pregnant wife, and because like left to him, he would actually.
But he didn't know that at first. Remember, he found out halfway through, and then he punches his brother. But at first, he didn't know about the bankruptcy and his dad killing himself. He's just like, he thinks his brother is being stingy. He doesn't know about the fraud.
No.
Like, remember
the first episode.
Like, he knows about the bankruptcy, but not the fraud, is what I meant. Like, he thought, like, oh, we'll declare bankruptcy and we'll have money. But he didn't know, like, his brother was going to go to jail. So, like, he finds out halfway through, and then he works a bit harder after he finds out. But for the first half of the season, what's his excuse? You can't just declare bankruptcy.
The baby to starve.
I just think, at that point, you were basically saying you would rather take money from a widow and a child, because at first you really didn't think that they did anything, than to just declare bankruptcy.
At that point, they couldn't just declare bankruptcy.
Yes, they could. Like, if they hadn't done fraud, like, based on the information that he knew, not on reality, if, okay, this is too much for us, we'll pay out, we'll declare bankruptcy, the courts will give them the money, and our business is shut down, but nobody has to go to prison. Later on, I kind of get it, you don't want to go to jail, fine. It was really annoying to me because he clearly, the thing that makes it okay to you is what makes me upset. He knows that it's wrong and he doesn't like it, but he's still doing it. And I think that really bugs me.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. At the end of the day, this is my brother, this is my sister. Like, I definitely would not. I don't want to be burdened with like having to take care of you and your pregnant wife. I'm your baby. Like, I'm sorry.
First of all, my siblings can never do such. Let's just start from there. My siblings would never do such.
But you have to try and understand the characters and where
you're right. You're right. I guess he loves his brother, even though his brother is horrible. I think that's it. His brother is just so shitty. I can't imagine loving him.
He has zero redeeming qualities. Even when he has scenes with his pregnant wife, this is somebody that you love and you're fighting for. I just don't see any chemistry. I just don't see the love there. I don't see, it's just dry. I'm like, how did you guys meet? How did you woo her? How did you fall in love? Because you are just a nasty person.
Look, I actually like his wife less because she's married to him. I'm like, there's something wrong with you because you chose to be with this man. Unacceptable. God, can you tell we don't like him? Anyway, we just went on a whole tangent. But basically, those two spend the whole season trying to prove that JP's death was a murder because they don't want to admit that they're frauds committing fraud. It's just annoying and I hate it. Basically, at the end of the season, Matt finds out the truth and guess who killed JP? It was Grace! Honestly, that bumped her up like 10 points for me. Like, her killing JP,
oh my God.
I love it.
Girl power.
So we find out that part of JP's, he's just so horrible, and this is going to add another layer of horror to it. So trigger warning for what we're about to say. Basically, 10 years ago, before the murder happens, JP assaults Eva. He rapes her while she's drunk, and then he gaslights her and claims that she initiated, it's her fault, she's a slut, she deserves it. And soon after, she has a miscarriage, and that's a really big deal because she's infertile. She's been trying to have a baby for a long time, and it's basically the breaking point for her. That's kind of a point where she has a breakdown and drinks too much, goes to rehab, that sort of thing. So JP tells Grace this. But he's like, oh, the reason I don't want to have sex with you is because I was seduced by your sister and it's her fault and she's the worst and, but I'm a good man. And I really appreciate this scene because in that moment, like, Grace has been taking a lot of shit from JP. Like,
she has been making a lot of excuses in her head for him.
Right? She just allows him to walk all over her and she's like, maybe it's my fault. But the moment that he says, Eva asked for it, she seduced me, she's a slut, she deserved her abortion, she doesn't hesitate for 1 second. She's like, what did you do? This is a lie. My sister could never. And I think that's such a big theme in the whole show, like how the sisters love each other and they have each other's back. And I like that the thing that kind of pulls Grace out of it is it could never be Eva.
Sisters, yeah.
It's really sweet. I'm just saying it's really sweet. She like strangled him to death.
Oh my God. Like, I was watching this in my room, cheering like a mad woman. I was like, yes! Get him! Like, that was me. Like, you would think I was watching a football match or something, but like, no, not really. Like, he was being strangled to death and I was like, yes!
It was fantastic. It was great. So Matthew finds out about it. And, the resolution is him deciding to burn up the papers and Grace withdrawing her request for the insurance. She's just like, don't pay it out. So, you know, they don't, the brothers don't end up being bankrupt, even though they should go to jail for their activities, whatever. But you know, we have a little jump forward, and the sisters are happy. They're spending time together. Eva is letting Grace and her daughter move in with her, and everyone is healing. You know, the world is healing. Oh God. Roger is also, you know, in a better place in the future. I just want to put this out there because the pedophile thing was really outrageous. He's happy. He actually helps Grace cover up the murder, which is a little nice thing. And I'm glad that he got to put a hand in burying JP or getting rid of JP. I feel like that would just, I know he doesn't like the idea of murder, but I think it'll make him feel better at night, knowing that such a horrible man is no longer walking the planet.
The show was just fantastic. You know, there's a lot that we love about it, and there's a few things that we would have loved to see. I personally would have loved to have at least one episode of like a background of Grace and JP's relationship, because I just want to see how it began. I want to see the sweet side of JP, because this can't be all you are. Like, I just wanted to see something. I wanted to see the progression. I wanted to see how he was when Planet was born. And yeah, I just wanted to see the relationship, because I just was like, how did this
No,
get
but you know
here?
what? Like, abuse starts small. You know, he didn't show up and was like, hey, I'm a dick. He was probably like really nice and sweet and loving, and you know, they got together and they got married and they got pregnant, and he slowly was just like, I'm gonna make you a shell of who you were. And you know, like I said, it was emotional abuse, it was mental abuse, it was financial abuse. They talk about the fact that she doesn't have her own card, like bank accounts. And it's just all these little things that just happen over time. And that's why it's so good to have a strong circle around you. Like, the sisters were able to notice it, because really from the outside, it's very easy to miss. Like, they seem like a happy enough couple. He has money. Their kid is well adjusted. Like, it's easy to miss and not notice that he's an atrocious person who's literally causing so much harm with his existence.
And one thing I really, really loved about the show was just how accurate it was, how they depicted like the effects of abuse on a person. You can see that like she's there, there's still parts of her that are there, but like her self-esteem is like really, really low. She can't even like join a dance class without feeling some sort of way, and like, you know, she can't even express herself.
She can't make
artistically.
jokes at the table.
Yeah, and like I love that the sisters understood that this was an emergency. It wasn't like he was strangling her every day or like punching her, like she was having bruises all over her body. They were like, we are losing our sister. Like, if she's healthy, you know, she's
barely
there, but you know, we are losing our sister, and this is an emergency. And yes, they all had their individual reasons why they wanted to get rid of him, but it was ultimately, we're losing our sister. We're losing, like, she's just a shell of herself, and that's what abuse actually does to you. It doesn't have to be physical abuse for it to be an emergent situation. Like, it's actually horrible.
No, strong agree. I think it was a really good way to portray that. And I think you're right. Like, if they had shown the relationship beginning, it would have been nice to see some red flags. I'm sure he was love bombing her. He was like, even at the beginning episode where he gives her the Christmas necklace, it's like doing all these extravagant things while being cold and withdrawn. It would have been nice to see. But I think it's important to show that kind of stuff as well, because I think a lot of people don't know what abuse looks like. They imagine it in one very specific way, and it's just so much broader than that. I mean, obviously, don't commit murder in real life. You will go to prison. It will suck. But if you can get someone out of a dangerous situation, or even let them know that you're there for them, it's really important. Oh God, this got really like serious and dark.
I mean, the show is serious and dark. You know, we had some funny moments, but we have to talk about this, because that's ultimately the message of the show. And I love that no matter how hard JP tried to isolate Grace from her sisters, she was like, nope, they're my sisters, I'm going to go and hang out with them. We do this every year. And that just frustrated JP the more. So every year he's just like, how do I isolate them some more? You know, Ursula's a whore, this person is like, bro, they're my sisters. I love them. And I love that, because abusers love to isolate their victims, because then it's like,
it's easier.
Yeah.
But the sisters came through, and I really appreciate how much they found it important to stay in her life and visibly in her life as well, right? It wasn't like a secret thing where you have whispered phone calls. You know, they would speak to JP and, you know, make snide comments. Although, you know, I wish they did more, but at the end of the day, they couldn't push him too far, because that will be his justification to say, no, your sisters are disrespectful to me.
And they didn't want to push Grace away, because Grace knew she was suffering, and you know, at the end when she kills him, like you could tell that she knew that the marriage wasn't perfect. You know, like she just didn't have the confidence to do something about it because you know there's a child involved and all of that stuff. So I like that they didn't isolate her, because if they just came out and said, Grace, you are married to like a shitty person, like we hate him, she's going to start talking to them less and less, you know, the things like, you know, the sex life problems and all of the things that she usually confides in them about, like those things would have been, you know, getting reduced until she was completely isolated. Because what do you tell someone when they've already told you, like, hey, I don't like who you're married to, you know, leave the marriage? Like, it's like you don't want to go there and hear I told you so's and like, oh, you know, why are you still there? So I love that they still made sure they were intentional, like Mena said, like they were very intentional about still having a relationship with Grace despite the horror of the husband that she had.
Overall, it was a fantastic show. It had very serious topics, but it was also fun to watch. It was shot really well. The actors, the like 3 actors and the 5 amazing actresses, they were amazing. You should watch it. It's really good. I'm pretty sure it's only gonna be 1 season. It's based on a show called Clan from another country, so it was a 1-season event. I don't think they're gonna do that annoying thing that Big Little Lies did where there's an unnecessary season 2. So if you don't mind spoilers, go ahead and watch it. It's fantastic. And look into what the other projects that the actors on the show did. They've all been in other fantastic things as well, so look into that. But thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had fun, and I hope you'll join us next time on Minutes with Eminem. Bye guys, thanks for watching.